Okay, so our next video for this unit is hunger motivation. So what motivates us to fulfill the drive of hunger? What is triggering us to be hungry? What is telling, our body and our brain and us consciously knowing that we are hungry? Well, there's a few different parts of this. First, our actual stomach contractions are causing our brain to think that it is hungry. The chemistry within our body, and then our hypothalamus. So let's first talk about those stomach contractions. So when our stomach actually contracts, meaning that there is like nothing in there, right? There are signals that are sent to the brain, and those signals then make us aware, oh, okay, I need something in my stomach. I'm hungry. So that is the stomach contractions theory, that our stomach contraction realizes, yep, no food there. I need energy, I need food. And so that gets sent to the brain, then telling our brain, yep, you're hungry. The next part is glucose. So glucose is a sugar, right? And it's digested and taken up by the body through the intestines. Glucose is stored in our liver for the most part, and then in our muscles as glycogen. And it's distributed throughout our tissues to make them work as free glucose. So that is what glucose is, okay? So we don't consciously notice the changing levels of glucose within our body, okay? The glucose in the blood is monitored by our neurons in our stomach, in our liver, in our intestines, and what happens is those organs then send signals to the brain to determine whether or not there's enough glucose in our blood, okay? And specifically going to the hypothalamus. If there is not enough glucose or too much glucose, that's where our hypothalamus is going to make the decision whether you're hungry or whether you're full. So remember, we talked about this in our biological unit, way back in unit 2. The hypothalamus has two different parts that deal with hunger. The lateral hypothalamus brings on hunger. So that would mean that we don't have enough glucose in our body, in our bloodstream, and we need to eat to get more glucose. So the lateral hypothalamus brings on the hunger. If you destroy our lateral hypothalamus, meaning you lesion it, that means that the animal or the human will starve. They will never know that they are hungry, okay? So remember, lateral, and mnemonic is lateral, let's eat, okay? The ventromedial hypothalamus, on the other hand, depresses hunger, okay? So basically what it means is that it tells you you're full. If you destroy this part of the ventromedial hypothalamus, then the animal will never feel full, meaning they'll just continuously eat, okay? A mnemonic for this is vomit, right? Like if you're excessively eating, then you're going to vomit. So ventromedial, vomit, because if you, it tells you that you're full to stop eating. Okay, so let's talk about the set point theory. The set point theory is stating that our hypothalamus actually kind of controls our weight thermostat, okay? So what this means is that our body is predisposing us to kind of keep a steady weight, right? Keep homeostasis of our weight. And what that would mean is that if our weight goes below that set point, then our hypothalamus is going to kick in and saying, nope, you need to increase your food intake, and your energy expenditure decreases, meaning that we don't have enough glucose, so we're going to like lower the amount that we're using and increase our food intake. If we gain weight, if we go above that set point, then the opposite takes place, okay? So to maintain that set point, the body not only adjusts like how much food that it needs to intake, but it also adjusts our basal metabolic rate, meaning how fast our body is metabolizing or using up the energy that it has. So this set point theory is a theory. Not all researchers believe in the idea of a set point because they believe that we can change our set point. If you change your body weight slowly over time, our body is going to become used to that certain weight. So when you are younger, you might have a set point of, let's say, 140 pounds. And then as you get a little bit older, it might move up to 170 or 180. Okay. So it just depends on the slow changes. So that's the set point theory. So let's talk about the psychology of hunger. This is the cognitive side of things, okay? So there are external incentives to eat, right? Just eating based on the clock. So your body is used to eating at the same lunch period every day. And so on the weekends, you get used to eating at that time. So your body will tell you it's hungry right around maybe first or second lunch, right? You're also predisposed from the external of social eating. So if you go to a wedding, even though you're not super hungry, you're expected to eat there. And so you're going to probably eat. If you go to like a Packer party or a sports game, you're predisposed or you're used to eating, right? Like going into the movie theater. You might just come from dinner and you're super full, and then you get to the movie theater and you're like, oh, nope, I have to have popcorn at the movies. Stress and depression could also influence the types of foods you eat or how much you eat. And then watching TV might make you want to eat more, or being around family. So our taste preference is not only factored by our body chemistry. So our body likes certain foods because they need those vitamins, but it's also environmental. We know that my taste preferences here in the United States are different from taste preferences of people in Asian countries or in even in different parts of the country, right? Um, so that is something that we know is a biopsychosocial part of taste. So let's talk a little bit about some eating disorders. We're going to come back to these when we go into our clinical side of things, but we're going to do a little bit because we are talking about hunger. So the first eating disorder that we're going to talk about is anorexia nervosa. We're just going to go very briefly. This is characterized by a normal weight person, usually an adolescent woman, however, not always. This normal weight person lose a dramatic amount of weight continuously. And the psychological side of it is that they continue to feel overweight. So it's not only the weight part of it where the person is underweight, but it's also the cognitive side where the person still feels overweight. So you need to have that biological, the physical side of it and the cognitive. Other eating disorders are bulimia nervosa. This is a disorder characterized by there's episodes of overeating, or sometimes called binging. Usually these binges are high calorie foods, and then after the binge, there's a episode of vomiting or using laxatives or fasting, excessive exercise, somehow to like kind of justify or outweigh the binge eating, so to kind of set it off. And then finally, there's the binge eating disorder. This is binge eating without purging. Okay, so bulimia nervosa is the flip-flopping between binging and then purging. And then binge eating disorder is just binging. So there is no purging. Usually someone with binge eating disorder is going to be overweight. Someone with bulimia nervosa is actually, usually they're going to be normal weight or slightly underweight. And then someone with anorexia nervosa is going to be underweight. So let's talk a little bit about body image. Again, this is going to influence our hunger and what we eat. In Western cultures, we tend to overemphasize thin body images compared to other cultures. And then cultures who put more emphasis on appearance tend to have higher rates of eating disorders. So Western cultures tend to have higher rates of the eating disorders because of the emphasis on body image. So let's look at our summary of hunger. So the biological side of things, so the mid-hypothalamic centers, the ventral medial and the lateral hypothalamus in the brain monitor our appetite. We do also have appetite hormones. We have stomach pains, which are those contractions We do have a set or a settling point weight. There is a universal attraction to sweet and salty foods. And then we have an adaptive wariness toward novel foods, meaning that we're slightly unsure of new foods because we don't want to be poisoned. The psychological side of hunger would be the sight and smell of tasty foods will make us hungry. The memory of last time that we ate. So, oh, it's been 5 hours since I ate. I should probably eat something. And then our mood. And then finally, the sociocultural side of things is that we have a culturally learned taste preference. And then we have learned restraint in cultures that are idealizing thinness, meaning that we limit the amount of food that we intake so that we remain thin.